Hey everybody, how you doing today? Mikey's back with an experiment. I have the day off. I have absolutely nothing to do. I am bored. I'm going to try and make some homemade dip. What I'm using, because I do not have dark-fired tobacco on hand, I went out and found some OHM pipe tobacco. This is a 1-pound bag. I think it cost me like 13, 14 bucks, something like that. Everything I have read shows that this is an additive-free product. Okay, it's their natural. As far as I can tell on their website, this does not have any flavorings, adjuvants, anything like that added to it. It's just pure tobacco goodness. Now, the caveat. This is not dark-fired tobacco. Dip is made from dark-fired tobacco. This is a mix of Burleys and Virginias. Yet I want to add some smokiness to it. So I'm going to experiment. How so? I'm going to smoke it. Not light it on fire and smoke it, but I'm going to put it in my pellet smoker and give it about probably 20-30 minutes of heavy smoke. See if I can impart some smokiness onto this, and then I'll continue the processing. So, follow me as we go on this little adventure. Okay, folks, I have opened the bag. Inside we have nice shag cut tobacco. I'm not going to do it all right now. I'm doing probably half, maybe a little bit more, which will give me more than what I need to make a 100-gram batch. Just laid this all out here in a layer. I got a pan lined with some tin foil, mainly because this is an old pan. It's got some rust on it. But yeah, this is what you're looking at. Nice, long, shag, ribbon cut. Once I get this dried out, usually you grind it up to more of a chew-like consistency. But I'm thinking this time I might experiment and just leave this as is, and maybe go for something like a Stoker's style cut, leaving it in its shag ability. I don't know. I'm going to play with this. Anyway, let's go and throw this on the smoker. I'm going to turn on the smoke boost feature of my smoker, and I will let this rip for about 25 or 30 minutes. Alrighty, here's my smoker. It is now starting to rain. Hello, Oregon. How are you? Enjoy the rain, yes. Blue sky, threat of sun, but it is raining, so I'm going to make this quick. Got this in my smoker. I'm going to close the lid, and then I'm going to turn on the smoke boost feature. Right there. Okay, I used to heat up. So let me let this get up to full temperature, and then I'm going to go. Okay, everybody. The tobacco is out of the smoker. Now, I was going to dehydrate this a bit more, but it came out of the smoker. It's very dry. So I'm just going to run with it as is. Get that out of there. Now, I was going to crunch this up a little bit, but you know, this kind of reminds me of Stoker's cut here, kind of leaving it in the ribbon form. So I'm just going to run with it. I'm going to see if I can do a la Stoker's style cut. Picking out some of the stemmy bits as I see them. Shouldn't be too much of a concern because they'll soften up in the process. But right here, I have myself a scale measuring in grams. I am now going to add, switch hands, 100 grams of tobacco. That's 50 grams. Do 50 more. Oops. There we are, 50 grams. I now have 100 grams of tobacco in said bowl. Next ingredient. By the way, here's my ingredient. This is what I'm going with today. Initial for the cook. 100 grams of tobacco, and doing 80 grams of water, 5 grams of glycol, and 7 grams of salt. Last time I did this, I went with 90 grams of water, and I went with a little bit more salt. I'm going to back off on the salt a little bit. I'm backing off on the water because I want a slightly drier product from what I had last time. So, I have myself a handy dandy mason jar. I use these for mixing tobaccos and jams and jellies. Hit the tear button, tear that off. Let me pause real quick. I'm going to add 80 grams of water and 5 grams of glycol and 7 grams of salt to that. But I got 2 hands I need to do it with, so I'm hitting the pause button. Okay. Let's go with... Yep, 87 grams. Nice thing about being in my garage. Throw the excess water on the floor. $80 grams. Woohoo! Okay. 80 grams water. 5 grams glycol. Propylene glycol, food grade. Got this off Amazon. There's my 5 grams, 85 grams total. Now 7 grams of salt. This is a jar of just fine grained canning salt. 5 grams going in. There we go. A little bit over, 1/3 of a gram. I'm okay with that. Now all you do is just stir it up. Dissolve that salt into the water as much as you possibly can. Now this does not look like much water. Trust me, it's fine. Okay. Actually, I was going for 7 grams of salt, wasn't I? So I can still add a couple grams of salt. Got all my tobacco drippings here on the table. Alrighty, my measuring is done for the moment. Scale off to the side. Lid back on the salt. This will come into play later. This is sodium carbonate, aka washing soda. Get my lid back on my water bottle so I don't make a complete and total mess. That over here. Now what I'm doing is I'm just going to mix this into said tobacco. I take a spatula and I'm going to stir this in. It's going to be somewhat dry feeling, but I just want to make sure the moisture has a chance to incorporate evenly throughout it. It's going to take me a few minutes. This will be a two-handed operation. I'm going to hit the pause button here for a minute, and I will finish this, and I'll be right back. Alrighty. Mixing is complete. If you noticed, if you can tell by the camera, it has taken on some moisture, has taken on a slightly different color. I'm basically just pressing it down, making sure that moisture is evenly distributed amongst all the tobacco bits. Now all we basically have right here is rehydrated tobacco with a little bit of salt in it. What I'm going to now is cook it. And how am I going to cook it? I'm going to cook it good. Said jelly jars. This tobacco is going to go in those jelly jars. I'm going to seal them. I have canning lids and bands. I'm only going to do it barely finger tight. So, you don't want to do them completely tight. And then they are going to go into my Instant Pot, which I have ready with some water in the bottom, just below the level of that trivet to hold it off the bottom. Jars go in there. Pressure cook on high for 3 hours. And then you let it cool down naturally for another 2 to 3 hours. And then we're going to take it out. We're going to add our alkalizers at that point and let the alkalizers work their magic. I will return once we get the Instapot ready to go. Okay, the jars. They are packed. They're in here. They're not exactly on an even surface. There we go. They're fixed. Once they're going, they're not going to move around. Instapot lid goes on. Pressure cook for 3 hours. Why am I doing 3 hours? Because that's what the snooze at home guy does. There we go. Now all I gotta do is wait for 3 hours and let it cool down for another 2, and we will see what happens when it's done. I shall return. Okay. After 3 hours in the lovely pressure cooker, let it rest for a couple hours, comes out. Look how nice and dark our tobacco has become. Starting to look somewhat dippish. Now what I have here, 10 grams of water. I use hot water because it dissolves easily. 10 grams of water, 5 grams sodium carbonate, and then I added a little bit of Scotch whiskey and 2 drops of liquid smoke. Because honestly, I don't think my smoking did anything to it. I can't really detect anything. So once you have this nice concoction, we're going to spread that into there. And what this does, this will basically freebase the nicotine, allowing the tobacco to release it. You want to do this in a well-ventilated area, which is why I'm doing this in my garage. Thoroughly mix it up, because it will release a nice ammonia odor. Get this thoroughly mixed, and then we're going to bag it. Or actually, no. Give it a few minutes here. I'll give it thoroughly mixed up. And then I'm going to cover this with a cloth. I'm going to come back once or twice a day for the next 2-3 days. And I'm going to give it another stir and cover it back up just to let it continue to off gas. And make sure all the ammonia has a chance to off gas out of this before I start putting it into final storage. All right. Let me stir this up with both hands here, then I'll cover it up and we'll let it go. Be right back. And there we are. It is mixed. It is alkalized. Now we just got to wait. I'm going to cover this up with a paper towel. So it'll continue to off gas. Going to come back and stir it once or twice a day for the next few days. And then I'm going to put it in baggies and put it in storage in the refrigerator to let it age for another week or so before I try any. And that's pretty much the process. Not too hard. If you use dark fire tobacco, your results will probably be much better. But this as is, it's quite pinchable. It's almost, yeah, very Stoker's-like because of the ribbon cut. It wants to come up and just come up in clods. You can kind of see it's a bit of a haphazard cut, but it's quite dippable. All we gotta do is just let the ammonia off gas, age it for a little bit, and we'll have a dip-like product. Is this true dip? No. But is this pretty darn close? Yes, it is. Anyway, that's the process. I'll come back here in a couple of days. We'll bag it up and get it in the fridge. Alrighty, folks. Here's the final product. Had it in the bowl, stirring it up every day or once or twice a day for the last few days. And this is what you end up with. I put it in a Ziploc. Good to go. I did take a pinch of this to try it. Natural tobacco flavor. This is just straight, no additives except for the salt and the alkalizer. So there is a very slight bitter flavor to it that comes from the tobacco. As I add sweeteners and other adjuncts to give it the flavor, that will be counteracted. But as it sits right now, all in all, a pretty solid product. Is this like the stuff you get in the store? No. Is it a close facsimile? Yeah, it's getting there. Smoking the tobacco like I did and with a little bit of liquid smoke seemed to help give this a little bit of smokiness, but it's not quite the level of smokiness I was hoping for. Next time I'll smoke it for a bit longer and see if I can impart more smoke flavor into it. But I have transferred this to a Ziploc bag, put it in here. I just fold this over. I do not engage the Ziploc at this point. And I just throw this in the fridge, and I just throw it in there like that, and I let it sit for a couple more weeks and let it continue to mellow out. When it's done mellowing out, I divide it up into however many portions I want, and then I can play with flavorings. I use some liquid Splenda to sweeten it up. I got some wintergreen flavoring. I got some peppermint oil. I got some vanilla. I even have some candy flavorings. There's like a berry and a root beer and stuff. I might play with those. I've played with those in the past with limited success, but I might give it another shot and see what happens. But anyway, this is going in the fridge. It'll sit there for a couple of weeks, and then I get to play with flavorings. So yeah, basically homemade dip. It can be done. It can be done, and it's actually not all that hard. Thank you all for watching. I hope you learned something, or at least got some curiosity satisfied. If you enjoy the content, be sure to like and subscribe. I appreciate it. And be sure and check out my Patreon page, where you can see this stuff a week or so before it hits the YouTube channel. No cost over there on Patreon. I'm not charging anything yet. If you're so inclined and want to get early releases, that's the place to go. Y'all take care. I will catch you later, and happy dipping.